Yeah, wow. Well, howdy, y'all people. How are you doing today? You all know my name. Well, you heard the name Courtney. My name's Courtney. Okay, I hope you like the name. I hope you're welcome at home. I sure am at home, especially when I got a bottle in my hand from the Saddle Sore Bar. I wonder where my phone's at. You know, I think my phone must be on low battery, because last time I used it, I was on a 6-hour conversation, I think, with some floppy pancake. I don't know where that guy's at, but maybe he'll call me someday. I might even get lucky and get a video call. I guess time will tell. Oh, hey there, mister. You like my pretty little dress? Yeah, extra short. Ugh, what am I like? Well, it's just one of those things. Oh, I cannot show the back, y'all, because it only goes to a certain length, you know. I can be a bit naughty at times, you know, y'all. Just my thing, right? What do we have here? Oh my God. Oh my God, my girl. Hey there, baby. Let me just get a little bit closer, man. Yeah, how are you doing today? Huh? How you doing? Oh my God. My implants are slipping slightly. That's unfortunate. Baby? Hey there, baby girl. How you doing? You look a little bit sad today. Come on, Ellenberg. Don't worry. Ellenberg. Everything's all fine and dandy when Kurt Wadsworth, when Courtney is around. You know, would you like to see my teeth? I bet y'all do. Whoa, easy, Ellen. Easy, Ellen. I thought you were okay with that type of thing. Looks like I was wrong. Don't worry. I'll be locking you in the cellar soon if you keep misbehaving. My God, Ellen. You need to learn some lessons, man. Well, not like me. I ain't no man. Hell no. Definitely not. So, Ellen, you go over there, you sit real quiet, boy, because I'm not in the mood. Anyway, howdy there, folks. Welcome to the live premiere, the live chat. It's me, Courtney. Yeah, you know who it is. Let me just take off my little hat. Oh, it appears that my surgery didn't go quite to plan. My hair transplant still has a bit of a bald patch. Oh my God, what am I gonna do? I have no clue. Let me take my handbag off. Extra special leather Montello mixed with cows and pigs, just like the ones that I once read. My God, it's all loose, just like me. And you know, I got a surprise for you. Yeah, that's right. I want to show it to you right now. You know, although I love switching and changing with all kinds of information, Although I like dragging on, talking for 6 hours night long, pissed as fuck, you know, I do have some redeeming qualities, right? Let me reveal it to you. Is this even allowed? I don't know. I just need to get it from behind mine. There we go. You all see the dress? Oh my God. I know, y'all. This is the thing. You know, all the cats in the chat, they're gonna get real jealous pretty soon. I'm sorry. It ain't my fault, you know. These are more real than y'all. Of course, because I never lie, do I? Never lie. These are as real as a all-American man. Hell yeah. You see, ain't nobody gonna be messing with me no more. Anybody gets too close, I'm gonna whack them. Yeah. I'm gonna whack him left, right, and center, man. Exactly. Oh my God, it's even got the bounce factor as well. This is amazing, man. Ain't nothing can go wrong. Oh shit. Well, I'll be damned. It looks like they've slipped a little bit. That is very unfortunate. There was only one problem. I went to the tattoo parlor. I thought maybe I could get some extra tips, you know, tits for tats. I don't know which way round it is. So I was gonna get some piercings, y'all, but the piercings went wrong. They penetrated my body, but they didn't remain in, and I think I got 2 big ones. What the fuck has gone on there, man? There's a fucking hole. I really don't know. Maybe this key to Courtney will unlock it. There we go, twisted round, unlock. Didn't do anything, man. I'm gonna get a refund. I really have had enough of this. Oh my God, it's just slipped out. This ain't looking too fine, is it? God damn, man. Okay, so hi, welcome. Apologies about the long intro. Got a little bit weird, but I think we can say safely that's probably one of the most 100% realistic interpretations of Kurt's transition. Okay, Jim Terry, Kurt appeared on there, even had some lipstick, and I think Ellen was nearby too. Don't know where the hair went, but there was no belts, there was no whips, which is very disappointing. There was no horses. Where were the horses? The horse is right here. I'm sorry, but that's just the reality. But let's just put that aside. On a serious note, welcome if you're currently here to the Dylan Rounds case. We are specifically looking at Kurt Wadsworth today. We're looking at key points, bits of info added on by Ty Corbin, interesting, important info, and possible deep theories which could tie on in with the Dylan Rounds disappearance. So make sure to stick around. We are doing a map analysis. We are depicting and almost like trying to reconstruct the story on the 28th, the day Dylan went missing. We'll re-include phone pings just as brief little markers and focus more on Kurt Wadsworth. We can even fast forwards as well to a later point when Kurt may have played a part as well. We can possibly tie it in with the decoy theory, as you've seen with one of my past videos, okay? So as we do go along, feel free to leave your own thoughts, opinions, reactions, and whatnot in the live chat. Say whatever you like. The gloves are off, okay? Or the clothes, depending who you are. Like, depends how dodgy you're gonna get, but I think for most part of it, people have been on good behaviour. The cats have been not having to, you know, come out the cat flaps as much. So, you know, things must be somewhat stable, right? That's a good thing. Also, another serious, important topic. Today, later on, we will be taking a look at the Kenny Veach case / community, as there are some interesting changes in behaviour, hypocritical behaviour, sudden changes and mood swings within some. And there are direct call-outs towards me. So I need to address some key points, okay? So you better make sure you're sat down right now and are comfy, because this video could get a little bit long, just like some other things. No, forget about that. But, you know, are you ready? Are you ready? Okay, good. So I think what we'll do first, very brief backstory to break into this discussion, this theory, this coverage, okay? So in recent time with Ty Corbin participating in some of my previous live video premieres, if you haven't already, make sure to check them out. I'll provide the link down below for my last video I covered, okay? Some interesting people showing up and some new individuals too. I mean, it was like Stony, was there one called Stormy at one point, and then Pebbles, Rocks, I don't know, I think I'm making it up at this rate, but you get the idea. Some new people coming in, which is good. And with Ty Corbin being present and speaking on his own behalf, what he thinks and what he's brought up, as well as him adding those key questions in from the last video, which I covered when responding to, that's what we're going to get into today. And it's to do with Kurt Wadsworth. What happened on the 28th? What is Kurt up to? Or at least what has he done previous? You know, at the end of the day, there has been talks back and forth between people in the community that think Kurt Wadsworth either plays a direct part in the case, he could be the puppet master, or maybe he just plays a lower role, or maybe he just simply knows of something but doesn't want to release it because it either endangers him, it incriminates him, or it incriminates someone he knows. So you could get those ties and those loyalty pacts with one another. You never know, whether it be family or friends, whether it be in a smaller community compared to much more busier urban places like other cities. There might be a lot going on, but how much of it is shared publicly? You know, they're covering for one another. That's a key point to make note of. Also, to break in briefly to ease in on this map analysis so it's not too abrupt, from what Ty said, he's not saying it with 100% confidence, but he's basing it off his own instincts and maybe some other bits and bobs he might have heard of, right? And it's to do with Brenner, James Brenner, making a call to Kurt Wadsworth on the 28th. Now, it is one of those things where, unfortunately, you can't check Brenner's call log because the phone data is not available. From what Candice Cooley had said, Brenner's phone was an old flip phone, so it could only store data for 7 days. And obviously the police didn't get it in time, of course, because the arrest of Brenner for unrelated charges was at a later point, which was June 16th officially. Okay, so all that time beforehand, okay, May 28th all the way up to June 16th, not much was done, right? And you've only got 7 days. It's gone way past that expiry date to be able to look through the call logs, but we can try and interpret it as best as we can. I mean, the only other thing which we shouldn't discredit is, okay, you might not have a person's phone anymore. It may have not been found, or in this case, the log isn't, and the data isn't like retraceable, can't be found, can't be brought back because it's gone. But what about the person on the receiving end, Kurt Wadsworth, okay? His phone, what phone does he have? Is it an old one? Is it a modern one? Has anyone checked Kurt Wadsworth phone pings or not? Has anyone been able to get access to it or not? Those are questions, right? Provided it hasn't been answered, I'll just do a poll already to kick things off. Do you think that Kurt Wadsworth's phone needs to be handed in to the police to be checked, analysed, monitored? / do you think it needs to be brought back in if in the situation that it was taken originally, nothing was found? Does it need bringing back in to be reanalysed? One option or the other, just in case, depending on whether it's happened or not yet, right? Because it's the thing, I understand there are people talking about Aviles and Chase Venstra. Supposedly Ty Corbin cleared it up with Aviles in one of his previous videos. Ty Corbin can correct me if I'm wrong there. As for Chase Venstra, still more coverage on him, like updates. I get that, that's understandable. With Chase Venstra being in jail at the moment, but elsewhere, not in the same place as Brenner. Okay, just take that in mind. I got it mixed up last time in a couple of videos back in December when I mentioned about Glitter Galaxy. It wasn't Glitter Galaxy, it was a person called Mel. A person called Mel said they were going to watch the case or something. I don't know how exactly, but they forgot to watch it at the time. So if Mel's here right now, feel free to add on to explain the situation or not. I think what I will do, because I can't talk on the spot, because I can't remember, but I do have the link to do with Chase Venstra. It's not literally up to date right now, but it was like maybe a couple of weeks ago, so it's not that old. I'll provide that in the link down below, pinned comment section too, so you can check back at that. And it's to do with Chase Venstra, his court dates and stuff like that. And to put it in brief, it was like following that trend of similar to delaying, like with Brenner. Although Chase isn't directly associated with Dylan's disappearance, the whole delaying process is kind of similar. And it's like, why are they dragging it out? I mean, with Brenner, you could say, well, dragging it out because they don't have a strong enough case yet, or they just want to be able to nail it down to be able to find Dylan in time. That would make sense, but what about Chase? So just wanted to highlight that point as well, because I know some people are like wondering where we're at with some people. It's one of those things where I guess at the end of the day, there's a range of different people you can take a look at. The most obvious one, followed by obvious ones, followed by slightly less known ones, obscure ones, and then ones in the darkness, right? And whilst you focus heavily on one person or another, you forget about the others below or spread about. So there's no harm in going back to these individuals. As for Kurt Wadsworth, he's always been in the light when talked about in terms of being a bit dodgy or possibly a bit suspicious, tied in with it. I think in the early stages, the heavy focus was Kurt Wadsworth would never do anything wrong because he's Dylan's friend. And you heard Kurt Wadsworth getting very defensive and emotional and crying because Dylan went missing. That's how it was portrayed in the early days, okay? And then with time, you saw Kurt Wadsworth getting more defensive, snapping, calling out people. I think you had that war back and forth between Kurt and Ty, pancakes Kurt versus Ty, maybe possible brainwashing going on. We've seen it possibly with Doug from No Thanks and Candice Cooley, how Doug's perception on people, on groups, on the case changed when influenced by Candice Cooley, had the same dislike towards certain groups and people in the case. Yet Doug was the opposite in the early days, in a way, okay, switching and changing sides. As for pancakes, that's been a thing with Kurt. I don't know where we're at this moment in time, whether pancakes still gets on well with Kurt. Possibly. I said I don't look into everything all the time, so you can correct me down below, but you know, with these patterns, these packs of people, how it can switch and change. You get the idea. Kurt Wadsworth, in recent time, you could say, has he quietened down a little bit? Maybe, possibly, but still rambles on. Still seems to be drunk at times, so I guess that doesn't help either. But because the case is dragging on now, you could argue some people might get a little bit restless. They want to push information out or certain coverage and focus on key individuals like Kurt. I can understand why Ty Corbin has got a little bit frustrated in recent time and is like, you should be asking the correct questions, ref. You know, just stuff like that. And it's like, well, yeah, you can ask the correct questions providing you have the information to back it up or some kind of knowledge in the first place. If that knowledge was restricted in the early days or in the mid days, whether it be paywall, whether it be access to a different website, country, whatever, location, then you can't do much at the time. But once that information trickles down, filtered out, like bird feeding, you get a hold of it, then you can look into it. And that's what we're hopefully going to do today. We're incorporating the possible Brenner call with Kurt 28th, the Decoy theory at a later date. I think it was in June, I believe, a bit later on. And then anything else, we're going to be looking at the polygraph test later on too, just to give my thoughts and opinion about that. Okay, so there's a range of stuff. I think it's under control. As for King Samoan Banga, what is it? I just can't remember. King Samoan changed his name recently. You remember? I'm sure it was. He's now called King Samoan Banger of White Chicks. Interesting name. I mean, who knows what other usernames will pop up next, but, you know, it's like a fashion show in itself. But don't tell Kurt that, he might get a bit jealous, right? So, yes, let's move on to the map analysis right now and reconstruct the story, okay? And so here we are once again on the map. Bear in mind, these markers can play a role within this story to an extent, such as Chase Venstra's whereabouts and also the phone pings of Dylan, right, and the phone call made. That's why I'm incorporating it all into one. What I also want to do is do a brief additional backstory directly with Dylan and Kurt, and we will do that in a second, okay? So just so you are familiar, okay, this is mainly to do with the 28th of May, okay, the day Dylan went missing, as described by Candice Cooley, the day it all went down. It was the 30th of May when the family came down, and then that's when the worry kicked in and the investigation started to begin, right? At least 2.5 days of covering up, being able to do stuff, move things around, dispose of Dylan. Sure, it might have happened on the 28th, the taking out, hurting Dylan, but the shifting around of disposing Dylan or something to do with other contacts and people, that could have followed after the following day or two. You never know, right? But we just zoom in over here. As you see, the Flying J, the 28th, 7 a.m. This is where Chase Venstra was at the day Dylan went missing, okay? He was away from it, so technically he had an alibi. Now, we don't know the exact timing of when Dylan was hurt, so we can't say that the likes of Chase Venstra was 100% away from Lucin all the way through the day, you know what I'm saying? Because it's fragmented, as later on in the day, as for the only other time, Ogden 10:30 p.m. Much later on in Ogden at Little Caesar's Pizza. Though questionably earlier on near Clinton, Chase Venstra was at a KFC, you would assume around lunchtime or just a little bit later after 12. I'd say that as a rough estimate. So although there's 3 key points throughout the day where Chase Venstra was at, mainly within this area here, there are still several blank spots in between throughout which aren't noted. If anyone has information, timestamps, locations of Chase Venstra's whereabouts in between 7 a.m. to 1300 hours, then from 1400 hours to 10:30 p.m. Okay? If anyone can fill in those blank spots, that will be appreciated. It may reinforce Chase Venstra's alibi, or it might weaken it and add further suspicion. You never know. But you get the idea. Early on, Chase Venstra is away from Dylan's farm and grain shed. As for Brenner, as we tie in stronger here, Brenner's down here near the grain shed in his trailer, okay? And the way it's been worded by Candice Cooley, passing it on in an interview, that Brenner supposedly was in his trailer all day Friday, the day before, the 27th, leading into the day after, the 28th, Saturday, up to about 2:30 p.m. That's when he left the trailer and then went on to the pond and then on to Don's place. Now, although I've not been able to find Don Haley's place still, that's still in the process, I can kind of understand it a little bit better now, with Ty Corbin saying it's west of the pond. That makes sense because it's going in the correct direction. You go to the pond first, as what Brenner supposedly described, and then onto Don's place. So it all follows in the correct direction. So it makes more sense to me, that part, okay? So you get the idea briefly of Brenner's whereabouts. The key thing with Brenner, he is on site. He is here where Dylan turned up due to the phone ping, due to the grain truck supposedly being parked in a grain shed. So he may have seen, heard something, or was directly involved at least, okay? So he's accounted for and on site. As for Don Haley, who may have not been directly on this land or near Dylan's, not too far away, speaking of, pond here and somewhere west over this way, right? So not too distant, within reach, and because Brenner knowing Don knowing Brenner, they could have reached out to one another in some way. The whole barbecue meeting could have been a plan in itself, or a time of confession, a time of reaching out for help, right? As we've previously talked about. But what about Kurt Wadsworth? Shouldn't he be accounted for, talked about, looked at too? Well, yeah. From my knowledge, at least, Kurt Wadsworth being in Montello on the day. Just zoom on out. Down here. Why would he be here? Well, that's where he lives, right? That's where his bar is, right? Even do a street view. Not the best quality, but just to tell it to you, okay? So we've got Saddle Saw Bar within this area, okay? Just take a look down here, just make sure we've not missed anything. No harm in doing so. You got the Cowboy Bar Cafe here, and Saddle Saw is further down there, okay? Just so you know and aware. So Kurt Wadsworth on the day, on the 28th, maybe inside of the bar or very nearby, people can reconfirm that and strengthen it if they wish to. Kurt, technically, in terms of distance, is about 26 to 30 miles away from Dylan's place, the grain shed. So directly, Kurt can't see what's going on or exactly here because he's so far away. Though, a quick dial up on the phone, ask for a favour, ask for some assistance, and I'm sure Kurt can get down there pretty quick. You know, Kurt's already been down to Dylan's farm and grain shed, like with Pancakes post Dylan's disappearance. He was able to get down successfully, no trouble. So the same could have happened once again here on the 28th. Could have got down, got access with Brenner, you know, allowing Kurt in through the gate. You see, we are fast forwarding slightly, so apologies, but I'm just trying to summarise it in brief. Okay. So Kurt being here in this area, supposedly returning with that past rumour and talked about by Black Dove, somewhere within Montello or the outer skirts there was a person like on a lookout for something, looked a bit shifty, a bit dodgy. Maybe that was the middleman to relay information on from Brenner to Kurt or Kurt to Brenner, you never know. But why would Kurt play a role in any of this? Why would Kurt answer Brenner's phone supposedly on the 28th? What would be the need? You know, does Kurt owe Brenner anything. As for money, not from what I know of, but could there be some kind of hatred, some kind of jealousy, something emotionally within which charged it? I mean, as for Brenner, with him being the main suspect, internally, emotionally, snapping, losing control, psychological, Brenner snapped. But then in terms of changes in behaviour psychologically, in terms of helping, doing a deed, covering something up, Kurt could have played that role too, okay? Or for whatever reason, Kurt may have decided to take command as the puppet master. These are just certain ways of explaining it, right? We also tie it in with what we've recently heard about the 2022 year in review of crime, Elko County, surrounding area, to do with there's been increasements, inclinements, however you call it, in violence, psychotic episodes, changes in behaviour, erratic behaviour due to the influence of being under certain drugs like fentanyl, right? So I'm not saying that Kurt Wadsworth is on any, but someone, if there's more than one person involved in the Dylan's disappearance case, they could have been under the influence. You never know. You never know. But let's tie it directly back to the backstory before we even begin, okay? So we go back to around the 26th, 27th, okay? With Dylan's camper being down here, right? Dylan, in his truck, takes it down to Montello on the 26th, right? To fill up, and payments are made too, following into the 27th, okay? At least 2 days or 1.5 days spent in Montello, and during that time may have been in the presence of Kurt Wadsworth, right? I guess they're friends, right? Or they know each other somewhat closely. We're stopping over in the past with Lance Kelly giving his own almost like eyewitness account, saying how Dylan would be parked up outside Saddle Sore Bar almost every single day in the morning. Whether that be a slight exaggeration or not, you can see how the relationship in terms of friends developed between Dylan and Kurt, right? But what you always acknowledge, and from, maybe one's own experience, even if you know someone for a very long time, things can still go wrong, backfire, So he's got to be cautious. Maybe Dylan may be too trusting, I'm not an expert with Dylan, but if for whatever reason he shows signs of vulnerability, others out there, maybe certain Montello locals, could take advantage of that. You never know. So you can leave your own thoughts to what you think about Lance Kelly's comments about Dylan supposedly being at the bar of Kurt's every single morning, Dylan being present there. I mean, in a way, it's not an extreme surprise when you take in mind that where Dylan is at his farm in Lucin, a ghost town, 3 to 4 population, right? Not much to see or do. That's why you'd come down here. And if you've got a friend somewhat close to someone, you might spend more time with them. So then it's not as boring and you've got people to talk to. But, like with the whole vulnerability part, it could have been exploited in some way or another. Like with Lance Kelly talking about the grooming of Dylan, because caused by Kurt. Well, we won't get too deep into that today. So take in mind, 27th of May, Dylan's down here, either parked up at the bar or maybe at the trailer of Kurt's. Remember, Kurt's trailer was bleached and cleaned after Dylan left, I believe, if it was in that correct order, okay? A little bit odd, but, if it's a regular thing or done whenever people come round, then maybe it's not as strange. But that's the thing in its own right, video-wise. But yeah, could anything have happened, though, between the 26th and the 27th of May, right, before Dylan's disappearance? You know, previously when we were looking at this bar, and we're saying how when Dylan was down here, did he get into any fights, any disagreements with people? Was that a possibility? Some said yes, others said no. But could it have been more to do with Kurt? Was there a falling out between Kurt and Dylan? And it just so happened to tie in just because of timing, maybe a coincidence either, of Dylan leaving the 27th, leaving Montello for Lucin to go back to his farm later on in the day to get on with the seeding because of the rain and weather report. You know what I'm saying? Could there have been a disagreement, some kind of argument, falling out between Kurt and Dylan? It's one of those things where Kurt can deny things, Kurt can shift the blame focus elsewhere, because as for Dylan, it's not like you can interview him to hear the other side of his story, to hear what he got up to directly and honestly the 2 days before, because Dylan is missing and the way it's gone with time, dead. So you can't ask him. That's what makes it more difficult. Though, I guess the only thing you can say is, as for the phone data of Dylan's, looking at it, it didn't reveal anything too suspicious from what Candice Cooley had said. But it is one of those things where if there was a falling out or some kind of disagreement, most likely it would have happened face to face verbally, right? And not on the phone, if Dylan was directly down there in the first place, face to face with Kurt. Okay? The reason why I'm throwing that idea in is whether it be down to a snap mentality, some kind of snap judgment. It's like, if Brenner too had issues or had an on-the-spot issue and Kurt was already kind of frustrated with Dylan, then when Brenner acted out later on in the day, called back and was like, hey, Kurt, you got to come. For whatever reason, Kurt was like, sure thing, will do, because I've had enough of Dylan. You know what I'm saying? That's one of the possible backstory motives, okay? Not all to do directly with money, not all to do directly with singular reasons, right? Because if we're talking about multiple people involved, you could have the main guy doing it and then the others just following orders, joining in, assisting because they're a friend of a friend, some kind of loyalty, feeling like they have to, maybe even being forced to, you never know. And then the other person exploiting it all and almost like moving like a snake in the grass, trying to ensure that they don't get caught but everyone else does. Some kind of hierarchy. Okay. There's a lot of points to touch upon, I understand. Okay. If you are confused, we can kind of like summarize it now. If we just zoom on out. We zoom on out, make sure we're facing the correct way. So, with the 26th, Dylan going down to Montello, following into the 27th, later on in that day, the 27th, moving back to the farm. In between that period, there could have been a disagreement or falling out, which annoyed Kurt. And if there is any past drama, past grudges, it could have burnt within like a flame. And if Brenner just happened to reach out to Kurt the day later, when it all went down, 28th, it might have been a key turning point or some kind of catalyst which made Kurt a bit more proactive. You never know. Okay? So, we're following the 28th. In that day, early in the morning, Dylan waking up, as we said, taking his vehicle all the way down. If you wonder why I'm talking a little bit quicker here, it's because we've depicted this specific part of the story a few times now, so we don't need to drag it out. Passing sun tunnels, turning right, going north, reaching the point at the gate where it may have been locked. Dylan then calling the grandmother, telling her what he's going to do, get on with in the day. Just a brief call. And that's 6:51 a.m. 9 minutes before the I guess you could call it CCTV camera ping, way northeast. That's Snowville. Flying J, Chase Venstra. So you get that idea, okay? Dylan making his phone call and then somehow getting down here, right? He couldn't have called Brenner successfully because Brenner did not respond to the call. Most likely had the phone turned off at the time because it's kind of early in the morning. Someone like Brenner, he doesn't look like the type of guy to wake up early, right? So Dylan finally getting down here, maybe knocking on Jim's trailer, asking him, hey, what about the gate, whatever. Could have frustrated Jim, or James, if you want to call him that. Dylan eventually getting to the grain truck, and we'll just do it under the, as we said, there are two different factors, theories here with the parking of the grain truck. Either Dylan goes into the grain shed to begin with, or parks the truck into the grain shed, gets out, and then is attacked, ambushed by Brenner, choked, strangled, hit on the head, falls to the ground, possibly. Or that Dylan is about to reverse in, but Brenner decides to help, or is told to help. Dylan's inside of the shed, and then the truck's reversed back, and then Brenner snaps because Dylan tells him off or something. Brenner has enough, reverses it too much, accidentally runs over Dylan. Dylan hits the floor, has a seizure, vomits, and that leads to the biological matter inside of the grain shed, in which the FBI later dug up down the line and found evidence there linked and associated with Dylan, right? So either way, I think the general theme is, and as described by Candice Cooley in the Heavy D interview, whilst being inside of the grain shed, also known as the pole shed, this inside is where Dylan most likely was hurt, okay? So we stick to that time point, not literally the time, the event point. Dylan is hurt. Dylan may be dead on the spot in here, right? But in terms of this call, right, one or two different things we need to take a look at, because as I said, this video is focused on Kurt Wadsworth. If it did take place, this supposed call, did it happen before Dylan was hurt or afterwards? You get what I'm saying? First of all, we'll do theory number one, right? Let's rewind back slightly to when Dylan was down here at the gate at 6:51 a.m., right? What we've got to acknowledge is that we don't have the timestamps for every single phone ping, and that's just because Candice Cooley did not reveal every single phone ping timestamp. I can understand it's frustrating for some people because it would be very useful and critical, and it could rule out one theory or another, such as the first one. And the first theory associated with the phone call, Brenner phoning up Kurt, would be for help, assistance in taking Dylan out. Now, I know to some people, they could be like, well, because Brenner has already attacked people and he's got a reputation and he can get angry and do stuff, he's quite capable himself of taking Dylan out. But maybe Brenner doesn't normally take out people younger than him, maybe a bit more healthier, fitter in a sense. That's a possibility. And with Dylan supposedly being taller as well. Obviously lighter, but taller than Brenner. That's another factor to take into mind, okay? So I'll just tell you the concept anyway, and then you can share your own thoughts, agreements or disagreements, okay? 6:51, Dylan, it could be a little bit frustrated, right, because the gate locked. Comes down here, bangs on Jim's trailer, somehow makes an announcement, and is like, come on, man, you know, I got to be parking the grain truck right now. It's going to be raining soon. You know, we haven't got time to sit back and wait just like you, Brenner. You're lazy. Stop drinking. Get off your ass and do something. It could be something like that. You never know. And Brenner's like, wow, boy, you better watch your mouth. And a few more arguments back and forth in between. Brenner then pulls out the phone, rings up Kurt Wadsworth, because they're supposedly friends, or at least know each other, right? All the way down here. At the Saddle Saw Bar, Kurt Wadsworth receives that call, and Brenner's like, hey, I'm having enough of Dylan. You seen what mood he's in right now? He's just complaining. He's calling me out. I can't stand it anymore. Why is he talking down to me? And then Kurt, you never know, could be like, yeah, man, it was exactly like that the day before. We had some kind of falling out and things got a bit tense. It pissed me off. So what do you need, Brenner? And Brenner says something like, I need you to get down here, boy, right now. We got to sort this out. We got to teach Dylan a lesson. And Kurt's like, sure, I'll come down right now. Drives down. Maybe down the highway or possibly the back roads, off-road, to get there quicker, because there is, I guess, alternatives, right? Eventually gets down here, parks up on the land or nearby. And then both Kurt and Brenner confront Dylan. Might even take him into the grain shed, smuggle him in, ambush him inside on the out and take him in, and then hurt him. Possibility, right? That's one way of looking at it. And then maybe they both assist afterwards too in the disposal. Maybe that's when Don Haley steps in as well. But the one key point is, and where it can be debunked, is what about the timing situation, right? If it's 6:51 down here AM, 6:51 AM, Dylan is alive and present. Did it take 10, 20, 30, 40, 50 minutes until Dylan was then attacked? At what exact point? We don't know. So you've got to try and guess. And that ties in with the whole point of Brenner supposedly calling Kurt. How long would it take for Kurt to go from Montello all the way to here, Lucin, right? In terms of distance, we've checked it, about 26, 27 miles. But how long does it actually take in terms of the time? Okay, so maybe, just maybe, this might help tell the story in terms of timing. You look here. There's two different readings. You've got 25.7 miles, which may be the one what I've covered in my previous video. And then you've got an 18.4 mile journey, which is less in mileage, yet it takes 4 minutes longer, which is kind of interesting. But what you must take in mind, when it comes to distance, it can be deceiving. You might see one route which takes 5 miles, and then the other route which takes 1 mile in distance, and yet the 5 mile one is quicker to do than the 1 mile one. And how's that possible? Well, maybe the 1 mile one has more obstructions. It's very steep, very narrow, very rocky and dangerous. So you've got to take more time and care and go slower. Whereas the 5 mile route is smooth, flat, straight road. You see what I'm saying? In this case, that 18.4 mile one could be the one where it goes over Patterson Pass, or even before that, maybe near Tacoma Road, right? And going through the back roads there. So, you get what I'm saying? As for the 25.7 mile one, more mileage, but doesn't take as long. By car, it takes 30 minutes. By bike, 1 hour, 18 minutes. By walking, 6 hours. By train, not available, because technically there's no trains in the area to be transported from one place to another, right? I know there's train tracks, but that's for transporting goods, not people. Yes, you could probably jump the train. Follow the train, fool! Supposed to be following the train! CJ, where are you at? Could be something like that, right? But I don't think Kurt's that desperate. How would have Kurt got down there in the first place? Would it have been ATV, buggy, motorbike, car, truck, whatever it may be? Could have been a white truck. Could have been one of the ATVs, like off-road ones. Polar ice, isn't that what it's called? Something like that. Got down there, 30 minutes. So you got 6:51 a.m. in the morning. Add on the 30 minutes. Well, possible. If we knew of the mid timestamp of Dylan's phone ping when he was still present and alive, that could help. You remember, let's just refer back to the phone ping so you get what I'm saying. With the second phone ping being down this way at the grain shed north, that's obvious. right? First of all, because that's what Dylan intended on doing. So at this point, Dylan probably still in control and in possession of his phone, parking the grain truck in the grain shed. And the thing is, with the third phone ping being all the way back down here, that's the questionable part. Did Dylan just return back to his farm because he completed his job earlier with the grain truck? Yes, no, maybe. And then maybe he returned back to Jim's trailer, which was the fourth phone ping, and that's when things de-escalated. It could fit the idea of that theory one between the phone call of Brenner and Kurt asking Kurt to get up there. 30 minutes. In that 30-minute period of Kurt driving down the roads to get to here, Dylan may have proceeded onwards, parked the grain truck in the grain shed, and then was like, right, I'm off for the day, that's me done. Walks all the way back to the farm, 5 miles. Don't know how long that would take, actually. And once Dylan got back here, then maybe with Kurt and Brenner meeting up at the grain shed or Brenner's trailer, they started talking things through. Like, right, what's the plan? What are we going to do? Right, first of all, let's call Dylan. Let's try and contact him to come back. What should it be about? Maybe we can say that the grain truck's leaking, or there's a problem with the crops, or there's a problem with something in the area, something's not working. That might get Dylan down. Or it could be, right, we need to finish that conversation off with the whole gate situation and why it was locked and why it is and stuff. Whatever it may be, okay? It might have got Dylan's attention. Dylan came back, but how? In his own truck, hence why it may have been somewhat dirty in the first place. As for the seat, that might be for later. Dylan coming all the way back, right, to get to the grain shed, parking up, getting out, and is like, right, Brenner, what's the problem? Like, can you show me? And then Brenner may walk Dylan into the grain shed. I'll even flip the image so it's a bit more realistic. Walks Dylan to the grain shed, turns round, walks on in, and maybe Kurt Wadsworth is already inside or waiting round the side of the shed. And that's when they confront Dylan 2-on-1. You never know. It's one of those things where Brenner's not talking, Kurt's not talking, right? So really the only other witness would be Dylan, but because Dylan is no longer around, you can't ask him. So that's why it's up for debate, this, and up for questioning and talking about. Dylan is then hurt in some way and then unfortunately disposed of. That could be how it went, right? Though, if that wasn't entirely the case, it wasn't that practical, or it was simply more of a pure snap situation with Brenner and not as thoroughly planned, right? Because that's what been the most common theme or talking point. Then we resort to the original idea and concept that in this spot round here, inside mainly, Brenner does snap in some way, hurts Dylan, maybe panics, or then starts thinking, right, I need some help, you know, oh my God, we've got to try and fix this. I'm still under the impression that Brenner has never murdered anyone before. Might have been close to fatally hurting people, but I've not seen any murder charges, right? Correct me if I'm wrong. So with that possible factor in mind, he might have panicked more than what he bargained for. It's the furthest he's ever gone with someone. So who does he call? Wadsworth. Why would he call Kurt Wadsworth, though? Why not Don Hately? You know what I'm saying? Brenner is, closer friends with Don Hately, I believe, rather than Kurt. Correct me if I'm wrong once again, but that's just how I've seen it. That's how it's been worded. Long-time friends, right? Don was the one that kind of encouraged Jim Brenner to move on over, right, into Lucin. But I have heard talks in the past, well, not in the past, in recent time, that Kurt, Don, Brenner were all kind of friends or kind of got on or talked in some way, or it was at least Brenner and Kurt, right? I believe post Dylan's disappearance, Candice Cooley was having a discussion with Kurt and Brenner and maybe Don, and they're all like trying to talk it through. I mean, if it was one of those things where the same type of guys rolled up at the same time, they always happen to be close to one another all together at once, or at least one of the two of the three together at certain events, moments, then you could say, well, it does make me think though, that during that Memorial Day weekend barbecue, if Kurt is in Montello, like with the locals, and I guess they're celebrating in a way, if Dylan received an invitation, which supposedly he did but declined as he was busy farming, could that have offended Kurt in some way, right? Let's just refer back to that for a second, okay? And then we'll move on to the second theory, right? Just give me a second. Make sure we're facing the correct way. Remember when we were saying about a possible falling out on the 26th or 27th? With Dylan being down here in the area, following the event on the weekend, right? Weekends of the barbecue. Some of the people might have been like, hey, Dylan, or just Kurt himself, hey, we're doing a special thing in the bar. We might be doing some karaoke, might be hanging out, getting all the boys together. You want to come down, Dylan? You want to stay here? It'll be good fun. It'll be a good time. Just hang out, have some food, eat, yeah? And Dylan's like, no, I can't. Got to do seeding. Got to get on with that because of the rain. And maybe Kurt's like, oh, don't be such a killjoy. Don't ruin the party mood. Come on, Dylan, be a bit loose. Come on, you can spend a day with us. Come on. And Dylan's like, nope, got to get on with stuff. Focused. And maybe, just maybe, Kurt sees that as a bit disrespectful in some way. On top of it, there's like other arguments going on or previous rejections. Maybe for whatever reason, Kurt Wadsworth gets jealous or doesn't like being rejected. Sounds a bit weird, that, right? But, weird things can happen. And not in terms of rejected in, oh, I don't like you, but more in, so I'm going to reject your proposal. I'm going to reject your invite because I've got better things to be doing, more important stuff. That could be how Kurt internalized it at the time and thought, right, you're not going to pay us a visit? Well, I'll be paying you a visit tomorrow. Or he might have kind of imagined that in his head. And then when Brenner called up saying, I need you down here, Kurt was like, what a coincidence. I'll be on my way. And that's why it ties in with this second theory. I might even do a poll right now because we've not done too many. Do you think that there was some kind of disagreement, argument, some kind of tension between Dylan and Kurt on the 26th or 27th, which then led into the 28th and Kurt getting involved? Feel free to vote or not. Okay? So, the reason why I'm talking about the second theory now, because it ties in, right? 28th still. This is the alternative one. Brenner does his thing to Dylan. Then Brenner calls Kurt. Kurt comes down, and it's in the hopes of Kurt helping and dispose of Dylan, right? Maybe Brenner doesn't know where to go, or he needs more efficiency, timing, doesn't want anyone to see it, so get it over and done with quicker. The more people, the more hands. It's just more practical, right? Brenner waits 30 minutes, 34 minutes for Kurt to get down. Then they meet up and they're like, right, you do this, I'll do that. We need to get this vehicle, we need to get that. Let's adjust the seat. Now, in terms of Dylan's own vehicle, okay? Seat being adjusted, all-wheel drive turned on. If Kurt Wadsworth wasn't too familiar with Dylan's truck, then maybe it was him that handled it. If not, maybe it was Brenner. We have heard some previous talk in the past, in a way like fixations between Kurt and Dylan's vehicle. Kurt's like telling Dylan, oh, you need to clean your own vehicle. You need to clean the tools. They're very greasy and dirty. It's a mess. You got to keep things clean. Now, does Kurt Wadsworth secretly have some kind of OCD cleaning, cleansiness? Is that even a thing? Probably not. The only reason why I'm saying that is because could you associate anything with Kurt needing to clean up stuff whenever in the presence of Dylan? Is that even a thing? Just very loose questions there, because, Kurt is onto Dylan immediately about, oh, you're supposed to be cleaning your vehicle, cleaning your truck, the inside and out, and the tools too. And then also wanting the trailer to be bleached after Dylan visiting. It's like, does he not like traces of people being associated with him? I mean, indirectly, but as a form of symbolism, the idea of cleanliness, the idea of cleaning up after a job well done, possibly. Is Kurt Wadsworth known as the cleaner? He takes care of the people afterwards. You get what I'm saying? Kind of roughly, loosely talking along that line. Whether it be just Kurt and Brenner, Kurt and Don. We can't forget Don. Don still plays a part, I feel, right? So yeah, they are the two ideas, right? And we'll just finally link on with two more additional key points, right? And that can be with the Don Haley situation. Because we supposedly know the timestamp 2:30 p.m, I would say, okay, and you can agree or not, we might even do a poll. Let's do a poll. Even though we don't have the phone pings, we've got two rough timestamps. Just like with Chase Venstra and his alibis, times, CCTV cameras. How it depicts him 1 minute here, and much later on there, much later on over there, right? You can associate that with Brenner and Dylan's situation. So 6:51 a.m, Dylan is out and about at the gate, approaching the grain shed. And then at 2:30 p.m, that's when Brenner decides to leave his trailer and goes onto the pond, followed by Don Haley's place. That could have been in the process of disposing the phone at that time, then going on to Don's place, right? It's all in the same direction. So you'd think it would be before 2:30 p.m. when Dylan was taken out, right? Due to the phone being found at the pond, and 2:30 p.m. after going on to that place. It seems coincidental, right? So I'm just basing it off that. So I'd say from 6:51 up to maximum 2:30 p.m, that's when it went down. That's when Dylan was taken out. As for the disposal of Dylan, that may have well happened 2:31 p.m. onwards throughout the day, right? You got to take in mind the 29th, a loose day. Anything could have happened then. Trying to get their stories correct. One or two individuals masterminding the plan, double proofing it so they can't get double crossed. Maybe they were all in it equally to begin with, but then due to maybe ego or so, got the better of one or the other, and they decided to stand out from the rest and appear more innocent. You never know. You get what I'm saying, right? Now, is there a possibility that if Kurt was called to visit, would Kurt and Brenner have gone on to Don's place? That's what you got to ask yourself. Possibly. I mean, Don's not said too much, right? So we can't hear from his side of the story. If Don was like, oh yeah, after 2:30, a bit later, yeah, Brenner came to my place for the barbecue, our little barbecue, and even Kurt came along too. And then we sat around the table and talked things through. But if that's the case, really, can it be reinforced heavily? No. So somewhere over here, right? What I will say, though, It wouldn't surprise me if maybe Dylan was temporarily disposed of, or some stuff was disposed of, and then Kurt Wadsworth did his thing, whatever that might be, but then went back to Montello the same day, maybe to try and make it appear less suspicious, right? You've seen it in films, movies, where, a key individual just so happens to be missing from the party on that day. Where were they? Do they fit that time slot of when someone went missing, got hurt, ended up in a gutter? And you associate one person and their absence with an event elsewhere. Maybe Kurt Wadsworth didn't want that. Kurt wanted to appear as if he was in Montello all day on that day. And, people may have come forth, witnesses, right, and have confirmed that Kurt was in Montello all day on the 28th. But it's quite easy to cover for someone, right? Slip out the back door, sneak off into Lucin, you never know. And I'm sure, I feel that maybe someone was talking about Kurt being absent, busy, doing something, not being in town on the day. Something like that. I could well be getting mixed up with Taylina, the daughter, not being present on the day or day after. You can, reinforce it or debunk it if you wish to. But, it wouldn't surprise me if Kurt Wadsworth returned back to Montello on the day, right? If this whole phone call, this whole favour took over. Because with Don, being present within Lucin, Don could have been like, right, I'll take over now. Don't worry, got this covered. Me and Jim will take care. And Kurt's like, good, right, I'll get back to normal business, right? Yeah, okay, bye for now. And then that's, whatever happened then happened. The disposal, as we've, tried talking about previously, right? Or it be something like this. Just zoom out for a second. Just tell a story visually instead of all the talk. At this point, 2:30 onwards, maybe Kurt, maybe Brenner separate, part ways. Brenner goes his way, Kurt does the same. Goes to the pond, Brenner, to dispose of the phone down here, as we've seen photos, and then goes on to Don's, which is west somewhere, either here or around here somewhere, which overlooks the mountains as displayed by Lance in one of his videos. Could well be in this spot here, but we can focus more on that in a separate video. And then at this point, whilst they're hanging out talking, where would Dylan be at? Would Dylan have been just left, right, at the inside of the grain shed, covered up in a blanket, left on the floor where that biological matter was found, but concealed maybe by the grain truck, right? Maybe they felt like, well, no one's going to come round in between. That's what I'm talking about by almost like a temporary disposal of Dylan, right? Unless the only other alternative is you turn up to bloody Don's barbecue with Dylan in the back of your truck, or you're in Dylan's truck with Dylan inside of it, but not alive. It could be as abrupt as that. You never know, right? Because it does seem like Dylan's truck was used. So for some reason, that could have been the way. And once Brenner explained it to Don, I guess like the other question is, did they even follow through with the barbecue? Like, did they actually eat? Or was it one of those things where that's what Don was under the impression of? Brenner tagged along and was like, hey man, whew, you won't believe what's just happened. You got to help me, man. We're friends, And Don's like, oh, God damn it, what have you done now? Okay. Bear in mind, Don does have a criminal past history. I don't know how serious. So Don isn't like a teacher's pet, a goody-goody boy, right? So you could kind of understand why maybe Don would help Jim, because they've both done bad-ish things in the past that do relate to one another, right? dispose of Dylan properly this time. But where? Well, it could be anywhere, right? Okay, still that talk about the wash. Not really been any more direct updates, but it's kind of like within this area or so, coming back to the pond past or nearby, with Don and Brenner both in the vehicle, you never know, driving down into this section which dips, and then you're now within the wash, and driving through it maybe up to a certain point, depending on how moist the ground was, you got to take that into mind. Some kind of mud splatter caused in the process, right? I guess if you're just on normal dirt roads, you're not going to get that thick layer of mud going into the wheel wells, right? So it's got to be where the mud might be a bit slightly more wetter, slightly deeper in a way, slightly different texture, not as dusty, but more thick, right? And a wash would be somewhat of an example of that. Driving down it, I mean, you could drive a fair bit, right? You saw it with Candice Cooley, the big push and that whole search attempt. They went down in 4x4 pickup trucks and stuff. So it could have been the same footsteps as Brenner and Don did what they did. And then after that, what? Well, I guess it was just like got on back to normal, right? And just trying to keep their stories straight. But because I think it's post disappearance of Dylan, that's when Brenner asked a favour for Don to store some of Brenner's guns, including that .22 rifle, and Don decided to surrender it in. Maybe it's because Don felt like some kind of additional responsibility was being shifted onto him, which he didn't like. The whole 50-50 or the other three-way split of we all take part and participate equally, nothing more, nothing less. Though what Brenner wanted Don to do was beyond that agreement. Maybe there was an agreement in place to begin with. And after that point, Don felt threatened by Brenner, or maybe Don felt like he was being set up by Brenner. So that's why Don took things into his own hands and then called Brenner out literally and got him arrested. So it made Don look a little bit better as a human. Wonder what Kurt Wadsworth thinks of Don, deeply within. Is Kurt impressed? Like, ooh, taking control of the matter, well done. Maybe Kurt could be somewhat grateful if Kurt was involved in some way. Because it's like, wow, well, you've been able to successfully shift the blame onto another person, which is Brenner. More people will probably fall for that fall guy just simply because of who he is and his past criminal history, right? So it's like, case closed, that's it, let's get on and continue as normal. Kurt acts emotional at times to appear as caring, to appear natural, normal. You never know, that's a possibility. Then, what we can always refer back to, obviously, when it came to boots on ground, right? Not literally in this area, but just to depict it further on. Is this Pilot Road? It could well be Pilot Road. But yeah, further on. You go to Sunday, right? The 29th. Really, the only event that has been really talked about, the supposed grandmother calling Don or Brenner, whichever way round it was, I think it was Don mainly, to then get Brenner as well out to be looking for Dylan. But supposedly they never did. Now, what about Kurt Wadsworth? From your own, from your own judgment, from your own knowledge, has Kurt Wadsworth ever gone out searching for Dylan? Yes or no? Has Kurt Wadsworth, or did Kurt Wadsworth go out searching on the 29th, on Sunday? Or did he do what, like, Brenner and Don Haley did, which was do nothing, right? I mean, you can excuse Kurt more because Kurt is further away from it, right? So he's not exactly a witness. He's not directly a person of interest or of knowledge because he's away from it. He can still play a part, as we've just described before, but with him being away, he's got that excuse. Oh, I'm not going to cover 30 miles to come all the way down and look for Dylan. Why not Brenner? Why not Don? Can't they do it? And you kind of shift the focus more on those two. So that limelight, that pushing, pulling and tugging could, send someone over the edge, or it's like a catalyst, some kind of tipping point for changes of direction an alternative, which like Don demonstrated, okay? Can we actually move down this road or not? It doesn't look like it. Feel free to share your thoughts and opinions as we do go along, you know. There's a lot to take in, right? And while some people may feel like the story's been told over and over again, we got to take in mind there are several different alternatives within the story. Different people, different routes, different motives, different timings, right? That's why as we slowly transition through, we start mapping out more and more of locations of people where they were at certain times, and then trying to work out the time difference, the time taken, and things in between which could maybe associate one person with another, right? Because that's the thing. Although one may be distant, or many people are distant, you're never completely alone. If you have your phone, you can make a call, providing you can make a phone call, right, with the signal and everything. You don't have to be directly there to activate something. Like, just on a completely different example, if you've got the architect behind, like, 9/11, that architect wasn't in the US, from what I can remember. They were, in Afghanistan or somewhere, Middle East. They constructed it all and then reached out, cell groups to arrange and establish what was going to happen, and then it did. And all that took place with great distance, literally. So when you're maybe orchestrating or assisting or covering your back within a case like this, a true crime one, which is smaller scale but still serious, you can do it from your fingertips on the phone, right? Even just like when it comes to covering a case or trying to solve a case, boots on ground works, and then other forms of contact, other forms of analysis can be done with distance and the usage of a phone, right? So it works both ways. I'm just taking into mind now what we've not covered, okay? And one of those things is to do with post-Dylan's disappearance and the re-emergence in some way of Kurt Wadsworth, okay? So, we'll just teleport to a new area just for a different change of scenery, okay? Let's do, what is it? This one here, if it will load me in. So, post-Dylan's disappearance, police presence, search and rescue presence, Candice Cooley, Justin Round's presence, right? On and off, some more than usual. In the first 2 weeks, Justin is spending quite a bit of time in Montello. You remember that? Remember that time in Montello? How it was salty pancakes that caught on, documented it in the first place, and you've seen those images, right? Kind of interesting how when Justin Rounds showed up to possibly be suspicious or wary of Kurt, considering the truck was parked directly outside or near to Saddlesaw Bar. That pancake showed up at the same time. That then later on in the case, when Kurt Wadsworth might have been called out by someone, pancakes showed up, more to do with in chats, panels. You see what I'm saying? When there's one thing going on with one person, the other individual just happens to make an appearance at that time to cover for them, to defend them, just to defend them as a friend, plead their innocence, whatever it may be, right? You're looking for those patterns. And I'm not just directing it or aiming at pancakes and Kurt. The main focus of this video is Kurt, Brenner, Brenner, Don, Brenner, Don, Kurt. Like that triangle, okay? It's almost like a triangle of how they may operate with one another. And although there's a triangle and it seems to be some kind of flowing synchronicity, something went wrong, something backfired possibly, but the other two parties weren't complaining because they were benefiting. Walking men, freedom, right? But yeah, interesting. With Justin being present, Montello. with that reward money, $20,000 to begin with, being listed. Okay? And I think it was shortly afterwards, the $5,000 money for Chase Venstra to appear, make his presence known, hand himself to the police as well. That was another one. No reward money was given out though, because Chase Venstra handed himself in, but the police didn't really want anything to do with him at that time. That's like how it's worded. But you hear all this talk about reward money, and I know that people want like the legal explanations and behind it all, the direct info. I think Weedleby said she's read it herself, she's seen it, so she might be able to get a copy of it or pass it on. I know Joseph wants it. Maybe with time that can be done. Oh, interesting. You look at all that vegetation. You see, all green, all very similar. And then in this patch, this area here, you got these like flowers, yellow flowers. Growing, interesting. Were they planted there by someone or just natural, always there? Leave your thoughts if you know what flower plant it is. Okay? Anyway, as for that $20,000 reward money, around that time, shortly afterwards, that's when you heard about Kurt Wadsworth supposedly getting information from a psychic reader that Dylan is held hostage, Montello, by Aviles and Chase Venstra. And then Ty Corbin recently said it was an Aviles person, but not Robert Aviles, more Evelyn, beginning with an E, Aviles, house. Okay. Now, originally we said, okay, opportunistic behaviour, get reward money, the $20,000, and also see Aviles and Chase in prison because Kurt didn't like those two guys. Okay, over and done with like that. Sure, it wasn't successful, but it was opportunistic behaviour. Though, in recent time, to tie it in with Brenner, there's been talks of, I don't know if it's directly from Ty or another individual, saying how Kurt Wadsworth actually received that tip-off from Brenner in the first place, and then Kurt decided to report it in to the family and then the police. Would that even make any sense, though? How? Well, you see in the early stages that orchestrating of shifting the blame onto other people so they themselves are safe. Possibly Kurt, possibly Brenner, and Don. Maybe it was Brenner in the first place that came out with the idea of, oh yeah, Chase Venstra, yeah, I don't trust him. Aviles too, yeah, I think if we just change the story, we add a possible outcome, right, then that's what we can do. And Kurt Wadsworth is like, yeah, man, that's a good damn idea. That's exactly what I'm going to do. And because I'm the one who was in Montello, then that tip-off would seem more reputable, right? You see what I'm saying? Let's just do it right now, okay? Come down here, okay? That's Montello. This is Lucin. About 26, round it up, 26-mile difference between the two places. If Brenner was the original to come up with the idea, the story that Chase Venstra and Aviles are holding Dylan hostage in Montello, would anyone believe Brenner to begin with? Probably not, because Brenner is a bit dodgy, he's got a past history, he's caused trouble, people might think he's messing around, and it could put the heat level directly on him then, right? And plus, because he's in Lucin, you know, he doesn't go to Montello as much now. He might have not been for a while. He doesn't live there anymore. So how would he know? How would he know? That sounds a bit dodgy, right? Is he just making it up? People less likely to believe him? Probably. So Kurt Wadsworth steps in voluntarily or by force, whatever it may be, and acts as the tribute, the messenger. Because Kurt Wadsworth is within Montello, and this whole supposed hostage situation is in Montello, you're probably more likely to believe in it, right? If Kurt phoned up saying, "Hey, I think Dylan's down here," and then if anyone was like, "Are you sure? Are you really sure about that?" And it's like, "Well, I'm here. This is where Dylan's at. I've literally heard the conversations going on. I've heard the talk secretly in the background. So, I'm just letting you know so no one knows it directly came from me because I don't want to get in trouble." You see that type of stuff. And you might trust Kurt in the early stages. You might take him serious, which obviously the family did because it was one of the first pieces of intel that came out post-reward money, right, being issued. So in the early days, sign of hope as well, likely to believe in whoever, anyone, because it's like on the spot, right? That's like how I see it, at least. Oh my god, there's a cat chasing a squirrel in the garden. Did your squirrel escape? Oh my god, it did! Nice. Nice, that's my boy. Sorry to cut in there, I know we're supposed to be cinematic, but there was a squirrel in the tree. The cat jumped into the tree. The squirrel jumped down, ran around in circles, ran into a bush. The cat ran after it, and then the squirrel jumped onto a fence. That's it. Squirrel doing some parkour maneuvers. Hidden assassin. There we go. So no animals were harmed, which is good. The cat looks very disappointed. See, that cat needs to learn lessons from the kitty cats in the live chat. Am I right? Hell yeah. Anyway, put that aside. So, tying it back with Kurt Wadsworth, making that call, reaching out to the family to possibly benefit with the money, or at least pass on the blame to someone like Chase Venstra, to someone like Avalos. There is a little bit of continuity there because you fast forward much later on through the months, was it July or a bit later? Probably later, when Brenner called Justin Rounds to begin with, right? Remember that Heavy D interview? You had the likes of Brenner calling Justin Rounds, talking to him. And Justin said how Brenner tried shifting the blame onto Chase Venstra, saying, "Oh, if you go down this road and you measure the distance and how long it takes, it will reveal something, and you need to look for buried stuff on Dylan's land. It could be like secret money or something, or a stash." But, the overall theme and tone was Brenner wasn't saying, I did it. Brenner did not confess about Kurt, about Don, about himself. All he did was simply put the blame and focus onto Chase Venstra. And as we've seen way back at the start, Kurt Wadsworth was the one that put the blame and focus on Chase Venstra, and that was originally orchestrated by Brenner, supposedly. But Kurt took over and said it himself. And then once Brenner was in jail, nothing much left to lose, I guess. Probably better off now being fed. He could say this and change the subject and put it onto Chase. So what you see, both Brenner and Kurt Wadsworth have blamed Chase Venstra. You could interpret it as, well, maybe they got the wrong guy. Maybe Chase Venstra is the real bad guy. So that could reinforce the suspicion on Chase if there's multiple people walking free or not that think the same way. Or what it can highlight, is what we've talked about in this video, where the blame game takes place, setting up a fall guy or trying to make an attempt to set up a fall guy, right? And because both Kurt and Brenner think alike, maybe how they did at the beginning with the hostage situation, and then fast forward to this phone call situation. You get what I'm saying? But Don Haley didn't seem to play a role in between those two, from what I know of. But then again, Don may have had his own plan, right? Maybe Kurt and Brenner were working in tandem together, and Don was kind of on the outside almost, going along with it, but he had his own plan of how to escape. Think about it. Don able to get Brenner in trouble, and fast forward a bit later, Don able to move out of Lucin and live elsewhere, Oakley, Idaho, supposedly. So, Works out for him in a way, doesn't it? You got Justin Round calling out Don. Okay? Not really seen Justin Round called out Kurt much. Maybe in between there's been more blame games going on. So that's why Justin has been fueled a bit recently. You never know. So that's what we've looked at. The final thing what we look at to tie it all together is the later, not by too much, involvement of possibly Kurt Wadsworth or Brenner. Okay? And when I say later involvement, I'm not talking following on from that phone call by Brenner in jail. I mean before that, right? Because if we look at June, post Dylan's disappearance, I can't remember exact what day it was, June 5th, June 6th. You've got to take in mind June the 2nd was the spring cleaning, but I believe it was after the spring cleaning it would have had to have been. Okay? You see, in a short space of time, some things went on, right? Okay? The 28th of May, disposing of Dylan, possibly. The 29th, maybe clearing up some loose ends, getting stories straight. The 30th, who knows? The 1st, June 2nd, spring cleaning. Brenner doing some additional tidying up whilst he's a walking free man. Kurt Wadsworth may have been doing the same thing or at a later point, right? That's what I mean by later point, following on from the spring cleaning. And more to be specific with, I'm talking about the key fob and gun. As we've known, and as it's been confirmed officially, both the key fob and gun of Dylan's that were missing were returned in June, early to mid-June. With that being the case, who exactly is responsible? We talked about the decoy theory, that, maybe it was Kurt that made that phone call, right, to the police family to divert the attention of family and police presence back in Lucin at the farm and grain shed, directs him all the way down to Montello. So it shifts the blame onto Venstre and Aviles, and then it leaves time for either Kurt to leave the place and go to the farm and move some stuff about, return the key fob and gun, because there have been talks previously where Kurt supposedly was saying he had the key fob in his pocket and it was too big, so maybe he returned it back because of that. It showed too much. It was an obstruction for him, an obstacle maybe. And if not that, maybe it was like assistance in, if Kurt can get the police and family away, then it enables Brenner to then go to the farm without anyone watching over him to return the key fob and gun. That's a possibility, right? That's the original direct idea what we had, the decoy. But the problem was, at the time, Candice Cooley worded it like that it all happened on the same day. Then we found out that it didn't, because either the key fob was returned first, then the next day the gun. But then it was switched the other way round. So it was like, well, which one came first? But eventually it was confirmed that one came one day and then the next day the other one was returned. And it was during night time, kind of tying it in with what we said in the last video, that discussion about nighttime activity. Was there any dodgy nighttime activity? And this is one of them, okay? Here at the trailer. Someone would have had to make it all the way down, and if it's nighttime, most likely by truck. Whose truck? Kurt's ATV, Don's vehicle, or Brenner's own truck. One of which would have been used to get down here to be able to dump the item, right? Gotta take that in mind. And also, do you any counterpoint to that decoy theory and that event of reporting to the police and family about the hostage situation? That event happened either a day or two before the gun and key fob was returned. So could it really be a proper decoy because it wasn't on the same day? I mean, if the police and family remained in Montello for a day or two, then it still gives time for Brenner to do his own thing and return the items, or for Kurt. So there is still that. But you get the idea. And I think everything what I've said in this video, right, from what I know of, from what I've heard, what's been suggested, and common sense, distance, phone pings, checks, and all of that. I would say that there is some kind of continuity, some kind of pattern of when Kurt does something, Brenner assist, or when Brenner needs something, Kurt assist, or when Brenner thinks of something, or says something, or accuses someone, Kurt thinks the same way, and then Don's in the background above both of them, or above one over the other. I mean, you probably can rewatch the video yourself, but I can't just summarize it in words, what we've just covered. But I do feel like, kind of like the level of deepness, there's a lot of crossovers between events, discussions, possible meetups, and people in that triangular metaphorical circle between Brenner, Don, and Kurt. Okay? I think what we'll do now is move on. Hey there, baby. Hey there, darling. How y'all doing today? I know some of y'all were to see me earlier, but not everybody is on time. Isn't that right, Joseph? Oh, don't worry, homeboy. Joseph, Josephina, whatever name you go by, you don't need to worry. Do not run away this time, because I know you did last, but you ain't going nowhere this time, okay? So there may be a few cats in the chat. And I've got a hair in my mouth. Where did that end up? I don't know. I've been going to town recently, man. Who knows? Literally going to town. All kinds of changes. Yeah. Oh my God. I just realized, y'all, this looks like the goddamn pig nose emoji in the chat with those pink circular nostrils. Oh my God. I told the guy to get the correct implants. Looks like I need to go back and seek some more consultations. But that aside, I think it's probably the best time, y'all, to do the one and only pose. You know exactly what I'm talking about, you know. We've seen it a few times now, okay? I'm surprised it's not been trending on Instagram or TikTok. It's known as the Brookie pose. So let me just take a quick selfie. Just aim it up here. Can't quite reach. There we go. Like yeah, okay. Chest. Do that little innocent, yeah, there we go. Oh my God, I need to expose myself a little bit more. Where have they gone? My God, let me just push them up a little bit. I'm knocking the lampshade. Oh, shit. It's difficult being female. There we go. Do that little innocent look. Hey y'all, want to check out my little new track? I got some new music coming along. I would greatly appreciate some special artists out there to create a hook and beat for me so then I can sing along, y'all. I hope you like my profile photo. There is more to come. Okay, so that's the Brookie pose explained. I'm very breathless right now. Now, one other little bit of news. Why do I look like some kind of Jamaican? I don't know. But one other little bit of news to mention. With that recent viewer called Stoney, okay, you've heard of them. I don't know where they came from, but it's good of them to come along. Stoney said in her community poll that if people give her $5, she can twitch her nose to cure people's hemorrhoids, which I guess could bring some kind of world peace. But the problem is, I can twitch my nose too, and I can do it free of charge. So what would happen if I twitched my nose for Stoney? You don't think I can? We briefly touched upon it in the past when Maria, you remember Maria? You know, it was like, oh my God, a little bunny rabbit? Yeah. Want me to twitch my nose? Maybe the eyebrows move uncontrollably at the time, but you know, I can't control everything. I don't completely have Botox, right? Not everything keeps still. Let me just push my hair aside, okay? Best not do like a up close looking up at the nostril, because that could get a bit weird and messy, but yeah. Yeah? Do I want a carrot? Damn right I fucking do. So you get the idea. I can twitch my nose. So technically, because, you know, with Stoney's username, I really wouldn't be surprised if that nose twitch had a reverse effect and then led to her having hemorrhoids. Stony-roids. My God. And speaking of stony-roids and bloody King Samoan accusing me, supposedly, of taking TRT, man, and then other people accusing me of having estrogen, and I think at this rate, it probably is true. My God, they're pointing to the ceiling! Yeah, they're pointing to the ceiling, man. Tyler Fellow must have come on in. If I showed my presence, that cross would be turning upside down, left, right, and centre, man. It would be brutal. No blessings today, because they've been taken away. They've been milked away. Get these fucking fake implants out right now. I've had enough of this fucking shit, man. Literally, I've had enough of this. My God, who treats Ellen Berg like a horse? Not on my watch. Who the hell am I? I don't even know it anymore. But speaking of which, this horse has seen better days. What the fuck has happened to it right now? My God, he's transformed. No. This ain't right, man. And yes, I'm directly not talking to you, Wes. You know, this is howling right now, okay? I'm sure you're howling. This is going to trigger everyone. His fucking eyes are rolled back. The eyes have gone white. What's happened to this horse, man? You know? And I think it might have something to do, with King Samoan, okay, taking care of all the animals. What TRT supplements have you been giving this horse of Brenner's? It's turned into a wild beast, man. This is built different. This is turning into more of a beast than Brenda. My God. Look at that. That is not right, man. Famous. Oh my God, it looks like one of those weird urban myths. It looks like a dwarf horse werewolf. My God. This is the worst thing I've ever seen, man. Come on, get a grip. No, he's long gone. There's no hope. There's no hope for him. That's such a shame, that. Though, I'm just making sure we've not missed any stuff, because now we resort back to serious talk. Okay? So, what do we need to look at next? Got the odd bullet point just so I keep track of stuff. Right. Feel free to share your own thoughts and opinions in between now and then. Okay, this is just a brief one. Okay, here we are. So, let's get into the... We're going to the alternative theory right now. Yeah, because it's only a short one. Oh my God. That feels so hard. My God, why? Those implants had some kind of, side effect on me. Wow. It shows. Anyway, very distracted by that. What the hell's going on? I don't know, things are getting a bit weird. And maybe things are getting a bit dodgy in the chat, you know. If there's any rats showing up at certain times, you've got to look for that pattern, okay? And maybe it might. So, this is the not alternative theory to the phone call being made on the 28th, but it's an alternative theory in terms of who may be responsible in general, aside from Brenner, okay? So, what if the likes of Kurt Wadsworth is involved in some way and knows something about someone who is responsible for Dylan's disappearance, but Kurt is protecting that person, let's say. It could be a family member, it could be a friend, some kind of local, some kind of associate, right? Why would you protect them? You might protect them, one, because of some kind of loyalty and close-knit ties. Two, or if it's got past a certain point, you may not want to reveal it because you'd incriminate yourself as well, right? If Kurt knew something in the early days but never said it, and he let it dragged out, then he would get in trouble too and arrested. He's aiding the main suspect, which makes him just as bad. So sometimes you can't turn back. There's no turning back, and that might be in Kurt's case, but I think Also, the idea of sticking to loyalty too, right? It wasn't Kurt Wadsworth that got Brenner in jail, was it? It wasn't Kurt Wadsworth which shifted the blame onto Brenner. Kurt shifted the blame and focus onto Chase, and that's what Brenner did as well at different points in times. But as with Don was different, as we know. So he could be the true snake in the grass. There could still be a possibility. You know what? We'll do a poll right now, okay? Just a brief one. Do you think that Kurt Wadsworth is involved, but mainly protecting the one who was responsible for Dylan being taken out and going missing? Leave your thoughts. Feel free to vote right now. What I will say is, although Kurt may have not put the blame onto Brenner, because Don did it first of all, took matters into his own hand, Kurt might have thought, well, okay, wasn't expecting that, but I'll take it. I'm not going to complain. It means I can keep this other guy safe, this other closer person in the dark so they don't get caught. That's fine. Brenner, okay, we're kind of friends or we know each other, but, you know, this person's more important and valuable to me than you are, so you can take the fall. And well done, Don, for doing your thing, but I'll keep my mouth shut and keep my head down. That could be how it went, right? So that was like an alternative theory, okay? You never know what happens next, right? Or what can come out of it. No harm in touching upon all this. Now, the next point, what we need to look at to do with Kurt Wadsworth, and it was talked about by Ty Corbin and, you know, drilled on, and that's to do with the polygraph test. As we've heard, a range of different people have participated in them, right? And this way it's a little bit messy. If people are trying to stay as normal as possible and keep their heads down, if offered the chance, if asked, requested to do a polygraph test, then they should, right? To follow through with procedures. If you've got nothing to hide, then you should do it, right? And that's what most of the main ones did, specifically Brenner. But then again, maybe he had no choice because he was put into jail. So it's like, well, you got no choice, right? But then you got Aviles, he did his thing, right? Then you got Chase Venstra, he did his thing. Possibly two innocent guys, both doing it because they were asked to. They felt the need to prove their own innocence, despite all the blame shifted onto those two guys. That's one way of looking at it, okay? But then like Don did it himself, but if Don's got a plan all along, just like how he did with Brenner, he could have been like, right, I will participate in this just to prove my innocence, or I will take this possible substance, to appear calm. I might already be a calm person because I've got everything under control. So, you know, I do it, so I look less suspicious, I participate, I pass, and there we go, done. I'm all clean, I'm all good. But Brenner fails, and it's like, well, there we go, more shame on him. What a shame. Oh well, never mind. Then what about Kurt? Why can't Kurt participate as well? If Kurt's got nothing to hide, then he should do it himself. Unless Kurt feels like he could lie or reveal the truth. And I know people say, well, you just take something and it will keep you calm. But I think basing it off how Kurt does his outburst when he gets drunk, you've seen him on the live panels. He gets drunk, he supposedly reveals the truth and then may go back on it later. If that was in a formal setting of a polygraph test and Kurt showed up drunk, I don't think they're gonna, you know, accept him. I think they might be a bit wary, right? And if Kurt did show up and he was drunk, he might reveal the truth and then, or try and say something. Yeah, he could reveal the truth and then the test says he's telling the truth, but all for the wrong reasons. That's one way of looking at it. Or he might try and backtrack on himself at a later point, okay? If he goes in not drunk, not this and not that, he might be nervous. He might not have anything to calm him down. If he has withdrawal effects from certain substances, that could impact his anxiety levels, and then it could spike through the roof when doing the polygraph test. So maybe Kurt Wadsworth, for some reason, might feel like he supposedly has nothing to prove. That's why he doesn't do the detector test. So a bit of an ego. And he feels like he can't control himself. He's lacking control when it comes to, you know, being in a formal situation and being questioned and interrogated. In this case, the likes of Don, the likes of Kurt have got lucky in the sense that due to police incompetence or police not, being as proactive as others, and the lack of press releases and press conferences, it's kind of like on a low, right? It's quieter, so they can like fade away into the darkness a little bit more. Not a strong presence, right? So that's the other one. And giving my own thoughts and opinions about Kurt Wadsworth, right? Polygraph test. If all the other people have participated, then why haven't you? It makes you the odd one out. It makes you stand out, which makes it suspicious. Even if for whatever reason you were innocent, it just so happens to make you look suspicious. Although Candice Cooley hasn't directed all the blame onto Kurt, all Candice Cooley has said throughout multiple different interviews with Time is, oh, well, we've got other people to focus on like Brenner. Oh, Kurt Wadsworth, the Wadsworths, I don't think they are exactly responsible, but I'm not completely writing them off the list, but we're not giving them the time of day at this moment. You see, could Candice be in contact with the Wadsworths in some kind of weird way? Maybe not, but just a theory, okay? It seems like she's not as focused on Kurt or the Wadsworths. Maybe she's missing something. Maybe the blame has been put and constructed so well onto Brenner only that people are believing in that and falling for it. That Brenner, okay, yeah, he still plays a main part, but people are overlooking others because the blame has been shifted so well onto one singular person. That's a way of looking at it, and maybe Candice Cooley has fallen for it. I could be completely wrong, but that's just how it seems. And like with that theory, what I said about the polygraph and the lack of control, that's what I think. I think Kurt Wadsworth might be afraid to do a polygraph test because he might reveal the truth, or the detector test will do it for him. And he doesn't want that because it will all implode on itself and then it all crumbles. That's how I see it in terms of my opinion, okay? So, we're not done. Now, it's time to get even more serious. Now, this is not about the Dylan Rounds case, but it's still to do with mysteries, okay? And this is where we transition onto the Kenny Veach talk. So you heard me say recently how there's been snakes in the grass, or at least people switching and changing in terms of behaviour from an overt non-participant observation of the past and present. That's what's happened. And I just want to share some things with you because there have been certain things said publicly, right, in certain ways about me, and it needs to be addressed. Now, it's from like 2 weeks ago, but I've only just come across it recently, okay? I can't monitor everything all at once because, as you know, if you're doing a completely different case with a different community, you're not really going to know what's going on in the background. So make sure you're still present right now. And for people that have just joined recently, welcome. Leave your thoughts in the chat, okay? I think whilst we get into this, we need a bit of light to guide us. That sounds very spiritually delusional, but at this rate, the way some people are acting, who knows? Got nothing to lose, right? Let me just turn on the light for a second. It's a little bit dark, okay? Turn on the light. Okay. So, I do have screenshots to share with you. They are public, okay? Keyword, they are public and are on YouTube, okay? Just read them to you, analyze, break down if necessary, and explain any confusion, okay? To be more specific, it's to do with one of the individuals who covered the Kenny Veach case, okay? And we'll look at it right now. Let's move on. Okay, so here we are. This is the user Artari, who did participate in the Kenny Veach case and coverage during 2021, okay? She did cover a fair few videos and went deep, and was one of the first few individuals to
get in contact with Susan Veach family member, which was very useful and, a step in the right direction. Though, with time, changes in behaviour by Artari, right? Stuff going on in the background, maybe, but it was sudden and abrupt, just like with Sean Horlecker, just like with some people here and there, and even like Kenny Veach himself, who we're talking about the whole beginning. What ties in line with all these different people? Spirituality, okay? Kenny Veach, spiritual, changes in behaviour. Sharon Pilgrim, spiritual, slight changes in behaviour, odd, suspicious behaviour. Raymond Veach, the older brother, or younger brother, spiritual changes in behaviour. Sean Horlecker, external investigator and explorer, changes and abrupt changes in behaviour. Artari, another external person, but spiritual changes in behaviour. You see the pattern, okay? Bit of a coincidence. Then, less of that, more on this. I'll read it out to you, leave your thoughts. So Atari says, Raf, please keep me out of your videos and stop emailing me about Sean Horlecker. So, arguably, or understandably, part of this video is doing what she said not to do. But when you start wording it all public, as stated here, and about the emailing situation, okay, and some, negative viewpoints towards me, it needs to be addressed and kept under control, okay? Just like all the other procedures in the past. Do you understand? Good. So, let's continue. The bit about emailing me about Sean Horlecker, that was just basically saying, hi Atari, how are you? How are things? Have you heard about Sean and his recent re-emergence within the case? What are your thoughts about that? Let me know. And it was fairly abrupt, not much was said, right? In fact, she said, I don't want you to email me anymore. And it was left like that. So that wasn't really an issue, right? But there seems to be a bit more here to it, okay? So, she says, I don't want to be part of your drama. No, you're wrong. I did not stop because I am emotional and constantly changing my mind on things. I'm just tired of the Kenny Veach case. Tired of you making videos about me. I'm tired of being harassed by those hiding the truth about Kenny and tired of liars in this case. Okay? You read that on the spot and you think, that's somewhat understandable. Okay, I can understand. But it's not just like that though. There's some additional points. What was originally said previous. Public, which was then deleted. Like a community post saying, oh, these people are out to get me. These people are trying to silence me. Robin account 2 is still out there. And it's like, well, what's going on here? And then they're deleted afterwards, shortly afterwards. And then it's saying, oh, I'm just tired of the case. Just tired, too much has gone on. Those sudden snaps and changes, suddenly deleting something, removing a video or a comment, it's like, oh, in a way a bit like Jay Silverheels, focusing on something, covering something, talking about someone and then deleting it afterwards. And it's like, there's no consistency, and that's the problem. If there's no consistency, there's a lack of credibility in a sense. And it's unfortunate that, because for the most part, up to a certain point, when Artari was doing her videos, she did upload some good ones and coverage about the case, but things must have spiraled out in a way. Not exactly emotionally, but you could argue it being emotionally or external forces. And that's probably going to piss the individual off furthermore, but it just needs to be covered. Okay, so let's continue on. I really do enjoy making videos about Hawaii art and cooking. Let me please do my thing. You deal with it. It's always been about views for you and stealing other people's content and research. Just leave me be. I won't be answering more of your emails complaining about Sean's bitch boys, as you quoted. So she's exposing my emails, which, there you go there. But What I'm not going to do is whinge and whine to that extent, because understandably, when it came to Sean Horlacher in the past, when it came to that Telegram message, which was not an email, it was simply a message, like a DM, direct message, and that was demonstrating Sean Horlacher's behavioural change back then, an observation which no one would have seen, right? So it needed to be expressed to try and understand what was going on there. Though a direct message is different to an email. Technically speaking, different platforms, different levels of privacy, different levels of details. You get what I'm saying? The overall point to take from this is what Atari has done is kind of, gone against her own morals in a way, I would say. But yeah, let's say I am blocking you. I feel like blocking anyone at this point of talking about Kenny Veach case. Toxic. Let me move on. Let's just check the comments out. So they're just being somewhat positive. What does it say? Cody Cox. There's only so much info on Kenny Veach and it started getting recycled. What feels like 2 years ago to me. Glad you have moved on. Well, reality is there will be elements of recycling, right? Re-emerging new theories, changing thoughts in the process, looking back, reflecting, reinforcing points or debunking. That's how it works. It's like a full circle, right? And there will be times of repetition. Repetition is a form and key to mastery. Repetition is a form of, like with alliteration, making certain points and words bold so they stand out because there is meaning and significance behind them, okay? We'll get more into that in a second. DJ Moore nailed it. What did he have to say? You can still be one of his comrades. It isn't like he has done anything except steal others' contents and footage for his own gain. That's in relation to me. Okay, so let me respond right now. So from reading those paragraphs, in general, if it was just simply worded as, Raf, you're talking too much, stop mentioning me, I'm going to block you for that reason, I've had enough, I'm tired of this and that, the drama, bye, the end, it would have been like, okay, understandable, unfortunate the outcome, but it is what it is. But obviously, just like how most humans can act in life, it's that method of arranging, structuring, and wording what you've got to say, whether it be verbally or text-based, and then somewhere within, in between the lines, adding a little dig at the person. And obviously what that was, well, you might be in it for the content, the views, and doing all that bad stuff and stealing other people's content. Arguably slander towards me, what Atari has demonstrated, arguably speaking. I know not everyone will agree, that's understandable. And also, most definitely, hypocritical, okay? And even from DJ Moore, which we'll get to shortly. Just remember, okay, whether it be a TikTok video getting nearly 300,000 views, or some of my videos on my YouTube channel getting over 200 to 300,000 views individually, most, if not all of them, are completely unrelated to Kenny Veach. In fact, completely unrelated to true crime and mysteries. Just remember, Atari, just like other impetuous individuals that have claimed I'm only this, I'm a hybrid channel. Dark ambient music, sounds, nature, 4K videos, reviews, gaming, opinion, mysteries, true crime, and many more things as well. Maybe even stand-up comedy. Don't joke, Andrew. You get the idea. A range of stuff. And that some of the most successful videos, statistically speaking, are unrelated to mysteries, Kenny Veach, and our original content. So You can't associate one thing with another. Stealing content to get lots of views when the views what I have got were from my own videos and material. So already kind of an invalid point made by Atari, okay? That's unfortunate. As for the claims of stealing other people's content, let's just remember when it came to asking Sean Horlacher at the time, I asked before using. What was his response? Sure, man, you can use it. I appreciate it. That's good of you. Yeah. When I reached out to Frank from Exploring Abandoned Mines and Unusual Places, a good individual with a big established channel, 400,000 subscribers, maybe about 40 million total channel views. Big channel, reached out, asked him, could I use some footage, give credit. He thanked me for reaching out because I guess other people didn't in the past. When it came to Jay Chuck, Jay Silverheels, when it came to Atari, I always asked, right? Arguably speaking, it's not my fault if people retract their statement down the line and then suddenly go against it, just like how a person gives consent and the next day they say, no, you raped me. It's like, whoa, bit abrupt there, kind of unfair. You see the situation. And more specifically with Atari, okay? Even after the first time I said, can I use footage of yours? She said, yeah, fine. I kept asking her. It got to the point where it annoyed her. And she was like, come on, you know, Raf, you can use this footage. You don't have to keep asking. Why did I keep asking? As a form and showing of respect. Because, you know, there's no harm in asking, right? So eventually it got to that point where that consistency of being acknowledged that this can be used, that's what happened. So what went wrong? I don't know, because it wasn't stolen. But let me say one thing. With DJ Moore digging at me as well, saying that I'm stealing other people's content. Very hypocritical of him when DJ Moore specifically created an alt account all to do with Jay Silverheels. Now, it was all a matter of fun and it was entertaining. But what did DJ Moore do, right? He used footage, well, not exactly footage, audio material, audio content. So extracting the words, the talking, the voice of Silverheels in his videos and then sticking it into DJ Moore's own video to make some kind of funny sketch, right? So you took something, the audio, from someone without asking. Technically that's stealing content, right? Something DJ Moore accused me of. Supposedly, when he does it himself. Hypocritical behaviour. Very. Is it a surprise? No, not really. As for Atari, right? Her saying she's not changing in behaviour, she's not emotional, and then putting a negative slant on me. Let's just remember, Atari, that at times when people put you down and said bad things, I kept the community somewhat stable and provided updates without saying anything too sensitive or revealing anything sensitive to say Atari needs a break. She's just dealing with some things going on in the background. I have video proof of that in terms of me saying that stuff if you want to look back in the playlist, which documents everything within the case along with the threats by external people and others, okay? So, technically, defended her at times when other people wouldn't, okay? What else? Well, this is the thing. We want to get right into it. There was a time when Atari, if she isn't emotional, then explain why did it happen when Atari ended up associating the CCTV 2018 footage break-in, which we thought was Kenny Veach at the time. Atari changed her mind and placed the blame, along with another break-in, with Susan Veach's dead son.
Is that exactly appropriate? Is there enough proof? Considering Artari was in contact with Susan Veach around that time and beforehand, you thought there would have been like a level of respect or a certain understanding, and then to go behind their back and then accuse Susan Veach's dead son, who committed suicide, previously being associated with breaking criminal activity, slandering his name. Not exactly good, right? And of course, it's to do with the language as well within the video, saying it's him, right? And doing comparisons with photos too. Who was the one that stepped in once again to clear up misinformation or misunderstandings, try and heal it? Me. Susan Veach reached out and just requested that it would be covered, cleared up, that Sean, and when I say Sean, I mean the son of Susan Veach, wasn't the one responsible for the break-in. To clear his name even in the midst of his death, so he's not desecrated, right? I was the catalyst that did that. It needed to be done. Atari admitted her wrongdoings at the time, which understandably is a good thing, but it seemed like one has a short-term memory because, you know, kind of acting out, calling other people out when, look at what you've done. DJ Moore calling one out when he's done supposedly the same thing. I think people need to, you know, watch what they say at times, right? You know, slipping on stuff and not forgetting what previous stuff has been done, right? And it always comes down to specific wording. Some things and some actions can be associated with one another, right? And it's misunderstood. But if you directly look at the language and how it's been worded and how it's been structured, you can work around it. That's something most people have failed to have done within the Kenny Veach case, right, when covering it. One of the key inconsistencies, key things lacking within humans. You word it a certain way, right? You can't be done for this, you can't be done for that. You're trying to maintain balance. When you maintain balance, right? That's when resistance is caused, okay? It's like, how about this? You publicly, and it is of public information to begin with, the location of a person directed in the case, or some kind of whereabouts, roughly, of a suspect. People may support you, and that's what some people did within the Kenny Veach case. But then the moment you reveal a different location of another person to maintain balance, not for it to be, I'll focus all on you, witch hunt, but everyone else is excused. That would be kind of unfair. So by maintaining balance, whatever you do there, you do here. And that's what was done. But then other people suddenly didn't like it and got up and thought, oh, I'm going to protest. I don't approve of this. And it's like, what? So basically, one thing's allowed, but the other one isn't. Double standards. No, that's not how it works. Okay? Same with the Dylan Rounds case. Okay? It got to the point within the Kenny Veach case that although at first Susan Veach was a bit frustrated with me because of how I covered things and handled stuff, she eventually understood, in a way, technically speaking, that one has to be cautious and be wary of all people at all times and information provided, and to try and cover it with the same level with each person and bit of info. That's just how it is, okay? So, disappointed with Artari. We must also take in mind, and there is more video proof of it, 2021, when I did analysis videos of people participating within the Kenny Veach case, you know, that's what I did. I gave positives and negative points, but balanced it out just to give my thoughts and opinions on the people involved in the case, ranging from Jay Silverheels, Jay Chuck, maybe Jeff Clark, maybe Sean at one point, and Artari. Most of them 13 to 26 minutes long. Do you want to know how long the video was about Artari, talking about all the positives within her and what she's capable of within the case? 44 minutes. slowly approaching an hour long talking about Atari in a positive way. And she was very thankful of that at the time. It looks like things have gone completely upside down since. So it seems like the common notion is being a certain way, acting a certain way, doing certain things, good or bad, bad or good, and then having some kind of memory loss of doing all that back then, and then current situation, calling other people out, and it's like, are you any better? That's one way of looking at it. The only other thing I noticed, and it was revealed in a deleted post, which was typical, was one of the individuals, their name showed up, previous whingy, obsessive whiner, complained endlessly within the Kenny Veach case. Once originally called Spain Wins Numero Uno, then transitioned into the name Bird Guts, then transitioned into the name, beginning with L in recent time. The only reason why I know that is because Atari responded to their comment on one of their tabs, must have been given support, okay? And Atari was like, hope you're doing well, good to see you again, Bird Guts. And it's like, wait, why are you siding with that person when they were supposedly a troll that harassed you in the past? You talk about harassment now, you talk about it being unnecessary and you don't want it and it's annoying and it's not good. So why are you making allegiances with someone who once originally harassed you, made slanderous videos, and also of me more directly? So you call out me for my supposed behaviour, but you accept theirs despite what they've done has been significantly worse and against YouTube TOS, and you think that's fine. On top of blaming a dead person's son for burglary. I don't think those standards are that good, in my opinion. As for DJ Moore, he said, whether it be in person or not, he has a consistency of being a certain way, understandable, but then for him to then call out me, and then in recent time, when I said, how are you doing? And he said, all right, you didn't say anything to my face directly then. So, kind of interesting. Now, understandably, to a fair few people watching right now, if you still are, I appreciate it. We do return back to the Dylan Rounds discussion shortly because we've yet something else dropping in, new on the spot by either Mr. X or Jim Terry. We are getting stuff on the spot tonight. We're going to read it, we're going to analyse it and see what it's all about. So you better make sure you're in the chat still. And if not, contact other people to jump on in temporarily, okay? But I'll just close it off with this part and statement about the Kenny Veach drama case. True what Atari says, it is toxic, but I think it's also volatile. It's like tectonic plates. It keeps moving and grinding with one another, causing tension and resistance. Maybe at times there is misunderstandings, misinterpretations, but I think there are actual independent changes in behaviour by people and mainly directed and orchestrated by them themselves, okay? So, whether it be people with a past or not, anyone can change and anything can happen at any point. So you need to be alert and aware. Things can go to shit downhill very quickly. The Kenny Veach case does seem quite volatile at this point. I don't know if it's because my presence is no longer there because I'm covering other stuff and people don't like that, maybe. Some kind of bad taste left in one's mouth, maybe. Something's gone on since my absence, okay? Who knows? It could be like people that take a pill. Once you take that away from them, they start acting out, changing. And it needs to be implemented back into the routine of things, maybe. Oh, and I have experience with that when it comes to people in real life. So don't you worry about that. But let's put that aside for now. Just wanted to clear it up. And to summarise, if people have just suddenly come along, I have basically been accused of full-on harassment, been accused of stealing content and being obsessed about views. Yet reality is most of my viewed videos are original content and have nothing to do with mysteries or cases, first of all. The level of harassment was just simply asking Atari if she is okay, how are things going, just like how I defended her in the past with a 44-minute long video and clearing up drama back then and clearing up some of her own mess, what she made back then to settle things between Susan and her and much more, okay? And then some external people as well jumping on him. You get the idea, okay? So now, let's move back to Dylan Rounds and let's see what Mr. X or Jim Terry has to say, okay?
Okay, so here we are. It's actually on my community page, posted 3 hours ago. This is all in relation to the video, what we're covering right here, right now. So this is very relevant and up to date. So we see a response here by Jim Terry. Now, I assume it's by Jim Terry directly. Sometimes Mr. X does drop in, as you probably saw last night, I believe, but it's under the same Jim Terry account. But when it's Mr. X, he tends to put in brackets or something, Mr. X here, and then says what he's got to say. Now, I've got no issues with Mr. X. He seems okay. Sometimes he asks questions like, why are you not doing this? Why are you not doing that? But, you know, it's just out, I guess, of interest, and that's all. Mr. X seems quite respectful or neutral, so I appreciate that. He seems okay. Obviously, Jim Terry is the opposite. That's just who he is, and he maintains consistency in that. So that's also good. Straight to the point, no bullshit. Let's get on with it. So let's see what he's got to say here in response to this direct video, okay? Now, I can't do Jim Terry's voice, but I'll try and do something just to make it a little bit more realistic. He basically says, "Hey, Jim Terry here. How much longer will you make these pre-recorded videos and not deal with what went on out there? I see there and it makes me sick. You're too scared to cover the truth on what went on out there. Map, you think a map will do anything?" Okay, we will analyse that right now, don't you worry. He responded, Cleo. Cleo says, "Nice to hear from you, Jim. For your questions, it was me requesting Ward to cover this case. I thought with his approach on cases, it would be a key to helping find done." So, first and foremost, Cleo is not to blame, okay? And it wasn't directly Cleo that was the only person to suggest covering the Dylan Brown's case. No offence, Cleo. There was a couple of people. The process and build-up to covering the Dylan Brown's case was just waiting on what other people think, okay? Cleo, I think I came across, basically, I came across Cleo when I started covering Dylan Rounds, okay? That's when I first came across her directly. And then she encouraged me to continue despite the resistance met, and it was worth doing so. So I appreciate Cleo and what she had to say at the time, right? But before that, it was people, some from the Kenny Veach case community and some externals that voted, and the majority wanted Dylan Rounds. So I moved on to covering it and then came across new people, obviously, because it's a new community. And then it kind of merged as one, and that's where it all begun, okay? Now, in this case, let's just revert directly back to what Jim Terry has to say. How much longer will you make these pre-recorded videos and not deal with what went on out there? Well, I think, first of all, Jim Terry is a little bit frustrated, right? Jim Terry, his statements go, I've grown channels, I've made people who they are, I've gone on to different platforms, I've gone on to different call-ins, I've called in left, right and centre, I've made this, I've made that, I've taken over, I'm on everybody's channel, everybody's face, I'm the face that runs the place, except Warlike Ref's channel. You see? There's a little bit of frustration there, possibly. You look back at Gorilla Jack, okay? You remember Gorilla Jack when he did the odd few videos in relation to Jim Terry talking about him, but not appearing on his show and not providing a link or something to Jim Terry's channel? Jim felt that external content should have been consumed on his own channel, I guess, and that's what caused the frustrations and, I guess, the backlash with Gorilla Jack and Jim Terry. And maybe a little bit of frustration is arising here. You can share your thoughts down below to what you think, okay? But the bit where he says, stop not dealing with what went on out there. Well, the reality is, I myself will only know so much, just like how other people do, okay? Depending who you are, what contacts you have, etc. Okay? Jim Terry has Ty Corbyn, in which Ty Corbyn passes on information. That's understandable. There's some kind of rapport developed. So Jim Terry may know more than other people, let's just say. There you go, right? Though a viewer, let's just say, just simply a viewer from a different country, at least, who doesn't have any contacts, who really only feeds off the scraps of listening to information on channels which drip feed information, trickle breadcrumbs around. They're not going to know the same amount. It's not the same level. It's like comparing and expecting a person that's done a PhD, which just happens to be in the Idaho 4 case, unfortunate, with someone that's doing A-levels and expecting both to be on the same level and wave path of knowledge and intelligence and success. You can't compare the two together. They're at completely different stages in life. You see what I'm saying? So like with the Dylan Rounds case, okay? Some people will know more, and that's to be expected, right? Maybe the position they're in, the resources they have. That's just how it is, okay? What I make up for in maybe lack of direct information at times is by keeping the case alive, something other channels may not be able to do, okay? Okay, Jim Terry does his own thing. Does he make Dylan Rounds videos all the time to keep it alive, the case? No. Does he lack the stamina? Maybe not. I mean, it's up for debate, that, okay? I mean, he's able to cover a fair few shows in recent time and keep it fun and entertaining and have different guests on, right? And Mr. X is consistent as well with his presence. So that's all valid and showing. But in terms of direct Dylan Rounds coverage, dedicated videos, it does lack. That's just an observation. That's simply it, okay? What else is there? I see these and it makes me sick. You're too scared to cover the truth on what went on out there. Map, you think a map will do anything? Well, I could say the same thing to you, Jim. Do you think having a panel of interesting circus act performances, getting possibly whipped, a person wearing a fake bra, a wig, person with no hair looking like Freddy Krueger, and then another person having the hair shaved off, is that going to solve the Dylan Rounds case? No, not at all. Arguably and understandably. It's just like nothing to do with Dylan Rounds. It's just for, I guess, like entertainment. It's like their own show, their own content. But, you know, as I clearly said, and I have clearly said and stated it several times in the past, or it be both Kenny Veach and / or Dylan Rounds, that not every video might solve everything, but it can at least clear up the odd bit of confusion, the mess caused by other people that have created misdirection, false information, switching and changing of info, right? You see it with other people. The only difference is they don't upload it in video format. They just leave comments, right? Different levels of media, different levels of sharing thoughts and opinions. That's all it is. It's not the end of the world, okay? And in addition, once again, to reinforce, not everything can solve everything, but it can at least keep the case alive, a talking point for bringing in the right people with the right resources and keeping the case warm whilst other people scuttle on off to other cases which are hotter topics and may perform better. And I'm still standing. 4 months on, okay? Once again, just an observation. That is all. You understand? So, the bit about where it says, I'm sick of this. I mean, it's interesting for Jim Terry to say that, considering maybe things he's said and done with time, okay? So it must have struck a nerve somewhere, psychologically. That's interesting. But as I said, there are times where a key turning point, a key event, you talk about something, triggers a reaction. And that's what's happened here. That's what we've seen in the past with, what's his name called? Graham with no teeth. Okay? and someone else as well. Tucker, you remember Tucker? And maybe DP at one point. I'm not talking about dip pics, but DP, okay? I believe it was then, when I covered it about Dylan being possibly groomed and using Lance Kelly's footage to highlight that point. And people got very triggered then, very defensive and resistant. And it's like, just an observation, just covering and highlighting a point, relaying it and giving my thoughts and opinions, that's all. Same's happened here. Triggered, reaction, response. Could be indirect frustration within, emotionally, because they can't have what they want. They can't take over in certain areas. They don't like that. Possibility, you never know. But it's like, stand back for a second, you breathe in, hold, and breathe out. Repeat again, and maybe once more, and think to yourself, is it really practical? Okay, are you thinking before acting, or is it the other way around? The bit about too scared to cover the truth. If I was too scared to cover the truth, put aside the truth part, scared to participate in the case. I covered the Kenny Veach case when I was threatened to be silenced and all kinds of things. I continued on and I documented it as I went on. When I was threatened with, I guess, a form of slander and fake impersonation accounts, also translating into the Dylan Rounds case. When it all went on, did that scare me? It was disappointing to see. It was a little bit odd, unusual, trying to adapt to and make sense of it, but I continued on. So I couldn't have been too scared there, right? And as well, with this so-called resistance, which you may agree with at times, that you try and move in the right direction, you face resistance, just like what Ty Corbin has said previously, and Lance, that they've been searching, they've been doing something, the main focus, and they've received threats because they may be on to the right track. And that might be something Jim Terry might agree with because he's in direct association with Ty Corbin. Well, if you're under that, then you should relate and understand that I've been in similar situations of a lower scale, but it still has occurred throughout different cases, not just one, but two. Okay? And if one was so scared to cover the truth, okay, I think the hardest thing to do, first of all, is to be able to maintain and display balance when it can make you worse off than if you was to side with one person, right? Got to take that into mind, Jim Terry. Because when you display balance and neutrality to the best of your ability, you're not defending anyone, you're questioning everyone. And that can piss all kinds of people off because you don't choose a singular side. Kind of like the Shack lady when she was caught up in the middle of pancakes in Jim Terry. You get flack from all angles and perspectives. You become an enemy of everyone and anyone. That's the possibility. And obviously, the more threats or the more resistance in whatever shape or form, it can lead to being more scared, in a sense, for some people. And yet, up to now, I've gave zero fucks wearing a fucking whip, a mask, knockoff Mr. X from Wish.com, talking to a horse, interviewing horses in a field, tracking the shit trails as well, talking to an interpretation of pancakes depicted as SpongeBob SquarePants, talking about his pant size, what sort of pants and socks he wears, a fucking deflating banana in the corner of the room depicting the evolutionary fall of the Titanic, the saddened events of Gorilla Jack and, the resistance being pushed to Uganda, the fact that fucking King Samoan being called a 13-year-old by Fast Steady Eddie, and yet King Samoan is dealing with fucking shit and piss flying all over the place like a fucking storm. My God! We need someone to split the water in between, man. Where's the golden staff at? All the whilst dealing with a decapitated hand randomly found in my pocket. I mean, come on. Could it get any more scarier than that? Oh, wait. When I show my face on Halloween and I'm not even dressed up. Oh, no. Terrible. I know. Don't worry. If you need counselling, ASMR Polygraph is available anytime, any place, 24/7, just like Kurt Wadsworth's Saddle Saw Bar. Yeah. You get the idea.
Okay, so you see things are going on, changes in behaviour, literally on the spot as we speak, just how we referred to retrospectively within the Kenny Veach case. I mean, sure, resistance can be in all kinds of true crime stuff and drama too, but for some reason, I don't know if it's me, I like directly, or if it's just because of the sheer coverage or stamina, humans don't like quantity. I think that might be it, maybe. But just to add on in, which I didn't before, as for revealing the truth, or whatever you want to call it, okay, it can be done. It's a matter of when certain information is available, okay, when it's practical, okay. In the meantime, just trying to keep the case alive is the most important part, okay. And as said, there are some videos that come here and there which could reveal the truth about something, which could be something that not really anyone has mentioned before because it could be problematic for them. That comes with time and some form of patience too, right? A certain order of videos, a certain flow, how things can link on from one another and be memorable too, to refer back, okay? So it's under control, okay? We'll see how things go, see if it gets any worse, see what the chat is like. But yeah, overall, as for this video, this theory, okay, taking into mind what Ty Corbin has had to say, me going deeper into it, giving an idea, okay, so Jim Terry should be somewhat acknowledging, considering he's got information from Ty Corbin for him to do his videos and talk and invite onto the show. So starting to see maybe a little bit of hypocrisy once again, which is unfortunate, but it seems to be a very common trait within humans, like that level of hypocrisy, that level, okay? Unfortunate. See what Ty Corbin has to say. If he needs like any corrections added, welcome to, as said. You gotta take it this way. You get like a pure live stream and then you get like a pre-recorded video. Lance Kelly does the same thing at times, right? So what's the big difference? Both have live chats, literal live chats. That's where it can all go at, okay? And also, this is the other key thing, okay? You got a live chat, live stream, which can complement in its own right the same how a live video premiere can, right? It has got to those times where people have thought I was directly live responding to people in videos because of the weird timing and coincidence of saying stuff when people said stuff in the chat. Maybe it is true. Maybe there is more going on behind the scene. Ooh. Maybe. Anyway. Hopefully, overall, you found this video interesting or of some use, whether it be the Kurt Wadsworth theory, the alternative theory and thoughts, the coverage and clearing up misunderstandings with the Kenny Veach stuff, and / or, you know, all the other little bits and bobs in between, okay? You want to add more on and share additional thoughts, opinions, you can do so down below in the comment section. And we'll see what happens next. Time will tell. Thanks for watching. Good night for now, and goodbye.